I think this is the fourth time that you're listening to my bio, but despite that, Chairman and President General Kaya, thank you so very much for this wonderful introduction. Distinguished members of the Turkish Parliament, Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi'nin değerli üyeleri, aramızda onlar da var. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, as always, it's a great pleasure for me to address you all here today. I would like to thank ATC, DEIG, and TAIG for their invaluable efforts to organize these conferences year after year with remarkable turnout. The annual ATC conference continues to be one of the most prominent calendar events on Turkey-US relations in Washington, D.C. This conference, bringing people from both nations together and making significant contributions to the many discussions that need to be had both here and in Turkey about how our cooperation can be further enhanced and made more meaningful. I'm delighted to see that this year, too, the conference will address a wide range of issues from bilateral political affairs to topics such as tourism and agriculture. We're also quite honored that speakers include prominent leaders like US Vice President Joe Biden and Deputy Prime Minister Ali Babacan of Turkey. This year's theme, partnership, trade, and investment, the time is now, is very pertinent, especially in light of the ongoing dynamic relations between Turkey and the United States. When we spoke last year here in this same place, I emphasized that Turkey and US relations were no longer static in nature, but dynamic, and therefore flexible and adaptive. I explained that this very reality requires more energy, more resources, and more attention, and the defined theme of 2013 is fully in line with this understanding. Indeed, while the state of play with regard to Turkey-US relations is better than ever, there is no room for complacency. We must all invest more time, energy, resources, and attention to further deepening this valued relationship. Distinguished guests, as you all know, 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Erdogan paid a very important visit to the United States at the invitation of President Obama. The very warm and sincere welcome that Prime Minister Erdogan and his delegation received from the Obama administration was greatly appreciated and will not be forgotten. This was in many ways a historic visit which set a very high standard that will be hard to emulate, both in terms of atmospherics and, more importantly, of substance. The visit was an overwhelming success. Above and beyond the personal dialogue that our two leaders have cultivated, this visit, where almost every issue we are working on together was elaborated in detail, paved the way for more convergence on matters of common concern, and allowed us, as two allies, to focus on how we together can confront some of the very serious challenges before us, like Syria, Middle East peace process, and the fight against terrorism. While dispelling any question marks about the robust nature of our cooperation, Prime Minister Erdogan's visit reaffirmed once again to friend and foe alike that the bonds of alliance, partnership, and friendship between Turkey and the US are not only strong, but also further deepening as a vital and indispensable component of international relations at this critical juncture of history. With this crucial visit behind us and looking forward to the years ahead, our two great nations will be able to move forward on every important matter, knowing that we have each other's backs and that this ever-growing partnership, model partnership, will continue to thrive and serve the values and interests of our peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, as we together look to the future, we must first and foremost recognize that today the Middle East stands at a cliff. Personally, I am at once amazed, excited, and concerned by the dizzying pace at which monumental events have unfolded over the past few years in our neighborhood. The pace at times may seem overwhelming, but we can ill afford to be bystanders as our future takes shape. The nascent transitions in the Arab world, while difficult and complex, hold huge promise. To realize that potential, we must relinquish memorized half-truths of bygone eras and embrace the brave new realities of the region. It is human nature to fear the unknown, but in the Middle East, history is on a fast-forward trajectory, and inaction is the worst option. The time is now to invest in the future of the region. Clearly, there are huge challenges. Syria is the most central and urgent one. This is as much a continuation of a peaceful uprising against an archaic and despotic regime by a brotherly people as it is a national security threat on our southern border. While the Syrian people suffer a tragic fate, Turkey is bearing the brunt of this terrible crisis, together with Jordan and Lebanon. We will continue to stand by the Syrian people and give them the support they need and deserve in their darkest hour. But here, let us be frank. Almost 100,000 lives lost, and the world watches as the carnage continues. Are the lives of Syrians less valuable than others? Are those Syrians who aspire to the same values that we hold dear somehow less deserving of our support? These are questions that we have to keep asking. Indeed, when will the UN Security Council say, enough is enough? Or remember those chilling words, never again? I do not have the answer, but in Turkey, we will keep pushing for meaningful international action that will help the Syrian people as they struggle against a brutal dictator. Equally pressing and overdue is the need to act in concert on the one issue that for decades has fueled negativity in our region, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There has never been an alternative to a two-state solution. A state of Israel and a state of Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. And while many are exhausted by successive processes without peace, I do believe that for a variety of reasons, the stars may actually be aligning for another major effort. Turkey stands ready to assume its responsibilities to contribute positively to such an effort. It is untrue that according to many Middle East experts, outsiders, and yes, sometimes to us, developments in this region do not always inspire optimism. But we have no alternative other than to set big goals based on shared values that underpin the Turkish-US model partnership to bring about meaningful change in our region. To be sure, developments have taken their course and sometimes complicated our efforts to build bridges and mend fences instead of building walls and steering tensions. But such is the meandering course of history in our region. Like the march of the Ottoman military band, it is sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. What is crucial is to keep striving to overcome difficulties and take positive steps in the right direction. For a just and viable Middle East peace to take hold, it is vital for all nations in the region to adopt this constructive approach. In that context, let me also say that Turkey will continue to work towards enjoying robust and friendly relations with all countries in the region, including Israel. Historically, there has never been any discord between Turks and Jews. We in Turkey are proud of our history with the Jews. Our record is beyond reproach with regard to anti-Semitism or the legitimacy of the State of Israel. Since the tragic Mavi Marmara incident, our relations with Israel remain marred. Turkey, for its part, has made every effort to provide a fair basis that would allow Turkey and Israel to leave this sad chapter behind them. It is my sincere hope that the normalization process, which we have begun in good faith, will soon mature and we can resume the good work that our 2 nations do together. Such a breakthrough would also bolster our efforts in the region to reignite a peace process that could hopefully put an end to the plight of the Palestinian people with addressing the security concerns of Israel. The stability, prosperity, and security of the Middle East are also closely linked with the developments in Iraq and Iran. We believe that only with a truly inclusive and representative government can Iraq overcome the many challenges it faces. Disenfranchising certain segments of the society and creating new grievances among the various political parties will only serve to undermine the relevant stability in the country. Fair and viable wealth and power sharing arrangements that can be implemented are the key to the future in Iraq. The rising tension on Iran's nuclear program is another significant issue on Turkey's doorstep. Let me make it clear. We do not want Iran, or any other country in the region, for that matter, to acquire nuclear weapons. Such a development would gravely threaten peace, security, and stability in the region, not least by triggering a nuclear arms race. That is completely against Turkey's vision for the Middle East. Similarly, we are against any military intervention in Iran. It would have catastrophic effects on any already volatile region. Diplomacy is the only viable option in resolving the issue of Iran's nuclear program. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, Syria, the Middle East peace process, Iraq, and Iran are some of the major issues we work on with the US. In fact, our common agenda is so broad that sometimes even we lose sight of how just many issues we work together on every day. Never mind the many issues that we cooperate on that you don't hear about. Just listen to the list of the ones that are in the news every day. Syria, Iran, Iraq, Arab Spring, Afghanistan, combating terrorism, Middle East peace process, energy, weapons of mass destruction, proliferation, NATO, TTIP. Even when you breeze through the list, it takes time. And I did not yet mention Cyprus, the Balkans, the Caucasus, Somalia, Myanmar, LDCs, combating transnational crimes or facing violent extremism. Long story short, this is a relationship that works, and it is one that counts. But it is also a relationship that has its perennial challenges. While developments take their course and history takes shape day by day, the fault lines on which our partnership rests continues to stir. As we look forward to 2014, 15, and 16, we see elections on the horizon. Together with elections will come, for both our nations, constituent-driven dynamics and pressures of local politics. With all due respect to the late Tip O'Neill, I, for one, do not believe that all politics is local. But we must recognize that in moving forward, we will be faced with some very particular difficulties that will test both our relations and our ability to manage crises together. I will not elaborate on these here and now, but we do need to anticipate them as we contemplate the path ahead. Distinguished guests, Turkish-American relations are, of course, not confined to crisis management. High-level visits, consultations, mechanisms between dignitaries, or efforts to approximate differing positions. We also happily have people like you in the field who carry out interactions between Turkish and American societies as the engine of this relationship. With or without our knowledge, the peoples of two nations are working on 24/7 basis in every walk of life, and they continue to make a very complex webs of relationships between Turkey and the US. As our citizen diplomats, their efforts bolster the very essence of the Turkish-American relationship. Indeed, it is not my colleagues at the Turkish embassy who elevated the Turkish-American trade volume to $20 billion each year, although we would like to take credit. Nor it was Turkish embassy who made more than 770,000 American citizens visit Turkey last year. These are mainly the consequences of the intense interaction between Turkish and American peoples. As diplomats, our role is to encourage these interactions and provide them with necessary structures. Especially without the efforts of our citizen diplomats, Turkey-US relations would not have attained its current status. The ATC is a community of such citizen diplomats, and so are Dijk and Taik. Dear friends, in recent years, the Turkish economy has displayed a remarkable performance with steady growth, Sound macroeconomic strategies in combination with prudent fiscal policies and major structural reforms transformed the country into one of the major recipients of FDI in its region. Turkey already ranks as the 16th largest economy in the world and the 6th in Europe. The structural reforms prompted by Turkey's EU accession process have paved the way for comprehensive changes in many areas. As these reforms have strengthened the macroeconomic fundamentals of the country, the economy grew with an average annual real GDP growth rate of 5% over the past decade between 2002 and 2012. We gladly observe that in the face of global economic downturn, Turkey sustains its economic dynamism. Therefore, it is a very convenient juncture to make efforts to crown the excellent status of Turkish-US political relationship with further trade and investment. Indeed, when we examine our trade figures closely, it's amazing to see that our bilateral trade has been increasing consistently with a volume that reached 20 billion in 2012. Yet, we believe that two countries have the potential to achieve a trade volume that far exceeds that number, maybe 3- or 4-fold. As such, we have to exert every possible effort to deepen our bilateral trade and economic cooperation. Besides the consistent growth in trade figures, the US investments in Turkey have also been increasing day by day. The number of US companies operating in Turkey has reached from 1,200 with a 50% increase since 2007. Just the recent investments of companies like Cummins, Pratt & Whitney, AES, Dow, GE, 3M, Amgen, and Pfizer are the indicators of the increasing interest of American business people to Turkey. Furthermore, our investment relations have been developing in both directions. To cite an example, recently a prominent Turkish company, Borusan, made $150 million investment in Texas to manufacture steel pipes for producing shale gas, which will create hundreds of jobs. Another Turkish company, Özkan Steel, is planning to make $150 million investment to manufacture steel for ship and building industry in Louisiana. However, despite all these positive developments, Turkish-American trade relations need constant care. The current situation of bilateral trade and investment relations between our two countries are far away from the actual potential. That's why we continue to underline partnership, trade, and investment. The time is now. Ladies and gentlemen, Turkey has been closely following the recent developments related to the transatlantic trade and investment partnership since both parties of a possible agreement are main strategic and political partners of our country. At that point, I would like to underscore that not only as a legal requirement of our present customs union with the EU, but also as an outcome of our deep and long-lasting relations with the US, it is now our main priority to start elaborating on how a free trade agreement process with the US would take shape. This is an imperative, as it is inevitable that Turkey will be directly affected by the consequences of the TTIP, as the agreement will alter the main parameters of our Turkish-American trade. Indeed, since the establishment of the customs union with the EU, Turkey has taken significant steps in strengthening market forces and harmonizing its legislative structure and regulatory mechanisms with that of the EU. Therefore, Turkey is ready in many fields to meet the substantial and technical challenges of signing a free trade agreement with the US. In this framework, we believe that it is time to start seriously considering the notion of instituting a free trade arrangement between Turkey and the US in parallel with the TTIP in order to establish a concrete framework to the economic relations and to pave the way to strengthen the economic pillar of our political and strategic partnership. A well-studied and thoroughly negotiated FTA to be concluded between the two sides would be one of the most important instruments that will fortify our model partnership. Such an FTA would create new trade and investment opportunities for both parties. As you may know, it was already announced by Prime Minister Erdogan and President Obama that a high-level working committee between Turkey and the US would be established to focus on the ways of liberalizing trade. I strongly believe that nothing but a free trade agreement between US and Turkey could better serve this purpose. Dear friends, before I conclude, I would like to underline that the strength of our alliance in the future will be underwritten by the degree to which our political leaders, our business people, our intellectuals, our diplomats, our military cadres, our scientists and scholars, and overall our two peoples take ownership of this invaluable relationship. This conference has been a great testimony to this co-ownership. I am convinced that our model partnership shall write many more chapters of success in the years ahead that would benefit Turkey, the United States, and all the states and nations in our broad neighborhood. I want to thank you for your attention and for keen efforts to promote the Turkish-American friendship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Tan. I remarked to a colleague earlier today how respected and well-liked Ambassador Tan is for his local knowledge and his easy ways. In truth, his voice is as welcomed in the Russell and the Rayburn buildings as in Chankaya. We are grateful for your words today, Ambassador Tan, and for sharing with us your distinct view from the trenches in Washington. With that, we conclude the luncheon session. I urge you to be as prompt as possible in the panel sessions, which begin immediately. Thank you all.